I'm an 18-year-old student living apart from my parents. I want to tell you a story that happened to me this summer. Remembering her, I feel a chill creep up my spine. It was summer, in the middle of hot July. It was already cool outside, unlike in the daytime in the evening. And I was chatting with my friend on a social network. Along the way, while reviewing various videos on YouTube, there were only a few at hand. As for the prepared sandwiches, my personal account was bursting with messages from a friend, and on the video of my favorite blogger was open on the screen, the only thing missing to create the perfect atmosphere for warm tea. However, it was not a problem to cook it, so telling my friends that I would leave for a few minutes, I went till I put the kettle on to boil and stared out the window. It was already dark and cool outside, and there was no one around. A few minutes later, the kettle notified me that the water had boiled. After making tea and throwing in a few lumps of sugar, I put it on the windowsill to cool. I didn't want to go into the stuffy room, so I decided to wait until the drink cooled down, and at that time enjoy the view of the deserted streets of Moscow. 2 minutes passed, and a strange tall man, maybe 2 meters, appeared at the bottom. He was tall, shaved bald, in a white shirt with red paint splattered on the collar, with a huge, apparently old belt and wide trousers. He walked slowly, whistling some strange song, then stopped and stared out the window of the first floor. By the way, I live on the second floor. I admit, it got a little creepy. He was too weird. And why is it normal for a person to look into other people's windows in the middle of the night? I didn't want to look at it for a long time, so I took the tea, which was still warm, and hurried into the room. There were already more than 20 messages in the personal account, and I quickly told my friend about the strange guy. Of course, he didn't believe me, although he asked to take a picture of him. Of course, I refused, arguing that he had already left. In fact, I just didn't want to see him again. This topic was quickly covered up by the news we were hotly discussing. It had been dark outside for a long time, the clock showed 42 minutes past midnight, but I did not think to leave the boundaries of the internet, like my friend, who had just told me that he was going to take a shower and then sleep, because tomorrow I had to get up early and go find out about work. Of course it was much more boring to sit alone. But since I didn't feel like sleeping at all, I decided to watch some YouTube videos again, and maybe sleep would come there. I hadn't finished watching one blogger's 15-minute video when I received a message from a friend. "Dude, I just saw this, you won't believe it." Anyway, I turned on the water in the bathroom while it was filling, and I decided to sit in the kitchen. It was hot. I opened the window, I was staring at the street, and suddenly I see a guy, like an ordinary guy, but there's something strange about him, I don't even know what. He's walking, humming a song, then he stopped near my house, looks through the windows of the first floor, looked for about 5 minutes, shifted his gaze to the second floor. Well, I thought, you never know, a friend is waiting for some kind, okay. And then he fucking looked out my windows, right at me, immediately. Stopped singing, and a grin appeared on his face, and a terrible grin. I swear to you, I almost built a house out of bricks. And then he screamed, not in a human voice. He screamed like that, and his face changed, as if it turned black, although maybe it seemed to me, but he was fucking screaming like that. Then I felt something wet under my feet, the bathtub spilled over. Well, I went to turn it off, then I go to the kitchen, he's gone. Maybe I glitched. It seems to you I'm talking about him, but you didn't believe me, asshole. You need to drink less, it won't seem like that, although he also seemed strange to me. But you have to look at the world really. The guy decided to take a walk, maybe he was drunk. So he looks at other people's windows. Who will shelter him? Fuck, I didn't imagine it. Wait, through the door there's a knock. It's strange, who can it be at such a time? Okay, I'll go open it, I'll sign off for you and go to the bathroom. And I kept watching the video, so I didn't notice that 40 minutes had passed since the last message. However, I didn't really care, but the neighbors came in. He probably poured the bath while he was staring at the guy, and then he forgot to unsubscribe and left. No bad thoughts came to my mind then, so I continued to surf the internet, and after a couple of hours I went to bed. I have to go to school tomorrow, anyway. The next day passed quickly enough for me, and I wanted to visit my friend. By the way, he lives opposite my house, but then I remembered that he had left about work, and he was probably not at home. I also did not call, so as not to disturb him again. He did not appear in the evening. Although he was supposed to arrive no later than 5 p.m., to be honest, I started to worry a little. But he immediately reassured himself that he might have gone to his girlfriend. You never know what. It was about 23:53 on the clock, and I went to the kitchen. I was wildly thirsty. Pouring from a carafe, I started drinking cool water, looking out the window along the way, and suddenly that guy appeared on the street again, in the same clothes, in the same look and with the same song, with the same step, with the same stop near my house and with the same gaze at the ground floor. I was already shaking, but what happened next was that he looked right at me into my eyes, and then such a malicious grin appeared on his face that I almost choked on water. Then his mouth opened to an incredible width and screamed heart-rendingly, furiously, loudly, violently. Oh my God, that scream! I've never heard anything so terrible. At that moment, it seemed to me that his face had turned dark, turned into just a black spot. At the same time, his skin sagged almost to his shoulders. Dropping the glass from my hands, I rushed to my room. I was shaking. It must have been about 15 minutes after the incident. I couldn't come to my senses. I was about to go to bed when there was a knock on the door. Loudly, with force, as if someone on the other side of the door wanted to break it down. I sat in a stupor, afraid to move. The knocking on the door continued for about half an hour, then everything went quiet. I blacked out and woke up only at 1 o'clock the next day, not remembering anything. Maybe it was for the best. After a few days, the memories gradually washed out of my head, and I blamed everything on what I had imagined at the time. I was too exhausted and tired, so I got weird. That's what I thought until I found out about my friend's death, a terrible death that I refused to believe in. It was hung in the kitchen, right in front of the window. His head was neatly shaved bald, as if by a good hairdresser. On the collar of his shirt, which he was going to wear for work, there were drops of blood that fell from his slit throat. I was informed about this by his mother, with whom we were on fairly good terms. As soon as I found out about his death, I realized who was to blame for it. Was he a maniac? Whether he was some kind of otherworldly force in human form, I do not know, but since then I never look out of the windows at night and always curtain them.